I have filmed one of these year in review videos the past couple of years and really enjoyed being reflective about my reading, because we can get to the end of the year and go, oh, I didn't read as much as I did last year, or I didn't enjoy as many books as I did last year. But when actually you look back and take it month by month and go, I read that many books that month, or I read any books that month despite it being a hellish month for me, or I took part in that, or I went and did that, or I went to that bookshop, it actually looks like it's just been a good time. And so I hope you are going to enjoy reflecting with me this year. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Katrina and I make bookish content here on this channel every week, and then movie reviews here at the weekend. In the description box below you will find my social links, including my blog and my Goodreads, where I have written reviews of most of the books that I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about sort of how many books I read each month, maybe some readathons that I did each month, and any sort of books and videos that I reference I will try and link up above and in the description box. So make sure you take a look in the description box, because there will be links there for you. I will try my best to make sure and link everything I talk about. So let's start with January. I read 19 books in the month of January. I'm sitting here now at the end of the year going, how did I read that many books? How did I read that many books? And yet, looking back on previous Januaries, January is always a really good reading month for me. And I know that January coming up, the January that we're in right now, it's not going to be the same. So I'm glad I read 19 books last January, because I read 19 books. I did the Bout of Books readathon, and that was responsible for reading most of those 19 books. I really enjoyed it. I was an expert again, and I got a really good start on my review books. So I read a lot of NetGalley books as part of the Bout of Books readathon, and sort of got a head start on the year. My favourite book that I read in January, which surprised me, was The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue, which is about a global pandemic. And I was like, why would you want to read that? But I listened to it on audio and I just couldn't stop listening to it. I talk about it in that Battle of Books vlog. I talk about it in my January 2021 wrap up. And yeah, surprising. Adult fiction, really enjoyed it. If you are put off by the fact that it takes place during a global pandemic, don't be. It was just really good. I really enjoyed reading it. Then let's move on to February. Somehow, even though there were only 28 days in February this year, I managed to read 24 books in the month of February. I had a very focused TBR, and I think that really helped me in the month of February. I took part in the 24 in 48 hour readathon. I vlogged that, so I'll try and leave that linked for you. And I saved ebooks to read during that readathon, and I think that was a really good idea too, because it was the month of love, with it being Valentine's Day. Haley and I buddy read Christina Lauren books this month, and that was an eye-opener for me. I really enjoyed all of those. I liked buddy reading them with Haley, and we read one of those each week. Although, did I do two each week? I don't know, because there were some that Haley had read that I hadn't read, so maybe I squeezed in some extra ones. I can't remember now. It seems like so long ago. We did a live show to talk about those. I really enjoyed that. And I read 3 book-to-movie adaptations as well. So it's kind of, when you break it down like that, it's not surprising that I managed to read 24 books. But the fact that I managed to read 24 books is like, whew. Let me find my pictures for you, because these are the books that I enjoyed the most in the month of February. I read As Far As You'll Take Me by Phil Stamper, which is YA romance, takes place someone visiting London for the first time. Talked about how this book made me even be nostalgic for Heathrow Terminal 3 Arrivals Hall. It's not a nice place to be, but the fact that it made me nostalgic for there, whew. And then, speaking of Christina Lauren, I also really loved Roomies by Christina Lauren. It takes place in Manhattan. It's so romantic. It's so sexy. And I just love the setting. I love the fact that this cover has the setting as well. Don't change from this cover. This is the best cover of this book. I really enjoyed it. Then let's move on to March. I read 16 books this March, which, sitting right here, seems a lot, but compared to 2020, I read 36 books in March 2020. We know what was happening in March 2020, and I wasn't sleeping in March 2020, and so that's how I read 36 books. And so reading 16 books, that's, you know, there's 31 days in March. We read half the amount of books as there are days. Like, that's really good. That's a book every 2 days. But then comparing it to March 2020, we shouldn't compare it. But this is what I mean about reflecting on the year. I did the Kindle Clear Out Readathon, which definitely helped. You were listening to audiobooks that you'd had for a while, and you were reading Kindle books that you'd had for a while. I didn't read as many Kindle books as a lot of people, but I really enjoyed it, and I watched a couple of the live shows that took part as part of the readathon, and I enjoyed that. I made a review of read Mike Gale books because it was Mike Gale March, and I made a review of my favourite book of the month, so I will leave that linked for you. And this is The World at My Feet by Catherine Isaac. The main character in this book is an influencer, and I love that about it, but she also has a lot of other deeper things about her, and so you definitely need to read this one. I go into more detail in that book review, and so go away and watch that one definitely once you finish watching this video. But this is adult fiction, and I love Catherine Isaac, and so it's hardly any surprise that that was my favourite book of March. April, I read 11 books in the month of April, and I DNF'd one book. I've definitely DNF'd a lot less books this year, but proportionally speaking, I've probably DNF'd about the same proportion of books, because I read double the amount of books in 2020 than I did in 2021. I naturally DNF'd more books in 2020 than I did in 2021. I had a lot of books that surprised me in the month of April. I had some books that surprised me because they were way better than I thought they would be, and I had some books that surprised me because I thought they were going to be better than they were. And so I ended up filming a mid-month wrap-up just to share that I was having a really tough time getting into the books that I'd put on my TBR. Even though I had a really tough time, I still have 2 favourite books for this month, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But one of the real bookish things that I did in the month of April was that I flew on a plane for the first time since March 2020, thanks to getting vaccinated on the 2nd of April. And I went to Powell's in Portland, Oregon, which has always been a dream of mine, and I was just so excited to go there. We went and, got a coffee and did the whole thing. It was fantastic. We had such a good time. We both really liked it. And we went to the downtown original branch, that's the whole city block of books. And then we went to the sort of outlying inner mall branch as well, which was cool to get to go to both. I really enjoyed being in Oregon, and I would love to go back again. But it meant for some plane reading as well. Masked up plane reading. I recommend it. I've got a vlog talking all about it. When I flew back here in July, it was a good time. But yes, 2 favourite books for the month of April. Broken by Jenny Lawson, which the audiobook of this made me just laugh out loud. It was amazing and hilarious, and sort of saved my soul when I was really thinking that I wasn't going to enjoy anything that I read in the month of April. And then also we have The Best Is Yet to Come by Katy Collins, which is basically the first book I read in April, and then I just started picking up other things, and nothing compared to this book. So that's probably one of the reasons why I had a bit of a rough start to the reading month of April. But yeah, 1 non-fiction, 1 adult fiction, both amazing. I did this one on ebook, and I did the Jenny Lawson on audiobook because she reads it herself. That was the UK cover I showed you, but I much prefer the US cover. I have a whole vlog where I show you the US cover because I got sent a proof copy and a special cross stitch to do whilst reading it. Just amazing, and I do that in the vlog so you can see how the progress goes with the cross stitch. May was a better reading month. I did bout of books again and again. That was one of the reasons why May was a really good reading month for me. Didn't travel a whole lot in May, didn't have a lot to do in the month of May, which was great, because April was traveling again. The world's open again to me now I'm vaccinated. And then June and July were just getting ready to move. So May was this little quiet spot. It was lovely. And I enjoyed reading this year's quick read books as well. I vlogged that process, and I read most of them in New Mexico, which was just, again, I said I didn't travel a whole lot. New Mexico is was a drive from where we were rather than a plane ride, and that was great, and the weather was stunning, and I had lovely coffee to go with it, and it was just it was superb, sitting in the sunshine, little lizards and wild horses and things around me, reading this year's Quick Reads books. It was just fantastic. I also did a couple of author interviews on my channel, which was really exciting. I'm so pleased that I've been able to do these author interviews after, you know, everything shut down and they weren't doing live bookshop events themselves. I'm so pleased that I was able to help out by interviewing authors here on this channel, and I've really, really enjoyed it. It's been something that I've just really enjoyed being able to do, and I hope that you've enjoyed them as well. Some of my favourite books of the year were read this month, as well as being a big reading month for me. I think it was my second best reading month of the year. Somehow February was the best. Don't know what was going on in February, but my favourite book that I read in May was Bad Choices by Lucy Vine, which I have a whole video talking about, so I will let you watch that one. This is adult fiction and it is wonderfully diverse, and I love the dual narrative, multiple timeline structure. It was perfect. And I believe in that video I talked about, you know, is that the perfect book to read during Pride Month? Because now we're moving on to June, which of course is Pride Month. I read 17 books in the month of June, so again, pretty good reading month considering the fact that, you know, we're getting ready to pack and leave and things like that. But the amazing thing about, you know, getting rid and clearing out and packing and tidying and cleaning is that you can listen to audiobooks at the same time, especially if your husband is working still from home in the same room as you. You need to have your headphones on. I did a sort of graphic novel reading weekend in June, which was really cool, and I made my June TBR with ebooks and audiobooks and things, and I was like, no, I need to concentrate on getting the books on my shelf read, because my books are all about to get packed up and move away, and so any books that I might want to offload before I move, I need to read now. And so we kind of like went down the shelf. I made a vlog about it. It was tough going, I will say. It was tough going. I had one Quick Reads book that I had left over that I didn't read in May, and I ended up doing this on audiobook, which was fantastic. And this was the Quick Reads version of How to Be a Woman by Moran, my favourite book for the month of June. The fact that this is a kind of almost reread for me, because I love How to Be a Woman, the full book, and the fact that it is a quick read and it's my favourite book of the month of June kind of shows you how disappointing June reading was for me. It's a shame, but it is what it is. And then, yeah, we gear change because, as you know, at that point I posted my life update video telling you that I was moving back from Denver, Colorado, here to Yorkshire, England. July, we also went and ticked off the last two mainland states that we could do. So we had visited 48 out of 50 states before we boarded that plane home, which is pretty good going given the fact that Ollie worked up until mid-July and we left on the 21st of July. The fact that we squeaked in another trip to visit North and South Carolina in there was, yeah, pretty good going, but meant that the month of July I only read 7 books, which compared to February is hardly anything. But when you think about the fact that I was preparing to move country and continent during a pandemic, it was a whole thing. My whole life changed, and so reading just wasn't a priority. I still read 2 really amazing books this month, and I read those during my 10-day quarantine when I got back to the UK here in my garden. So the fact that those came at the end of the month shows you just what my reading month was like. This one is Fresh by Margot Wood and is on my top 10 fiction reads of the year, and I talk about it a little bit more in that video. And then I also loved physical book coming up. Are you ready? I'm glad you're sitting down. Hope you are anyway. The Heights by Louise Candlish, which also makes it onto my top 10 fiction reads of the year. Fresh is very much like somebody going and being a freshman at university. It's very funny. It's a bit romantic. It's quite poignant. It's coming of age. The Heights, thriller. Ultimate thriller. We have dual narrative, dual timeline, keeps you guessing until the last page, and even when you finish the last page, I went back and read the first page of this again. I would love to reread either of those books, and so the fact that even though I only read 7 books, those 2 books came along in the month of July, it's saying something. Then I thought I didn't read an awful lot in July, but then August came along and I was out in the world again. I was back in England and Scotland again for the first time in over 2 years. I was seeing people and seeing places I hadn't seen in over 2 years. I had to go to the hairdresser, I had to go to the dentist. I went on a Disney cruise. There wasn't an awful lot of time for reading, and so August I only read 4 books. I've written it on my blog post here as 44 books. I wish. August is generally a really good reading month for me because it used to be my full month off of school. But yeah, I again read 20 less than I read in August last year, just to put it into perspective for you. But August last year wasn't doing a whole lot. We did some road trips, so we listened to some audiobooks August last year. August this year I was like, I have to go to Pizza Express, I have to go to Nando's, I have to eat all the Greggs. And as I say, we went and saw people and did things, and I went back to Glasgow for the first time. So yeah, not a whole lot of reading to report, but the 4 books that I did read, I did enjoy. And my favourite read for the month of August was If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy, which is a Disney authorised Cinderella retelling that kind of like flips the idea of the Bachelor, Bachelorette on its head a little bit. And I listened to it on audio and I really enjoyed it. So even though it didn't make my top 10 fiction of the year, August was a weird month. So then moving on to September, I started a new job in September. Very exciting. I was really excited to be back into teaching again. But it also meant that I had a commute again. So September was very audiobook heavy, and that is the general trend for the rest of the year. So yeah, I read 7 books in the month of September, and I reread 1 book, ready for another book coming out the next month. And so that was really enjoyable. My favourite read of the month of September was 100% The Library by Bella Osborne. I talk about this in more detail in our Q3 wrap up that we did, our live show. I just want you to gaze upon the cover of this one. The paperback for this one comes out, I think, January. It definitely comes out in the beginning of 2022. So keep your eyes peeled for this one. But I just really enjoyed it. It's cross-generational, uplit, and it just talks very openly and very honestly about loneliness and mental health in general. And I just think that Bella Osborne did an amazing job. And I just loved The Library. It was great. So then moving on to October, got back into the swing of making sure I listened to audiobooks on my commute and maybe fitting in some other books at the same time. And I listened to 10 books this month. And when I say I listened to rather than I read, it's because I just purely listened to books in the month of October. There were no books that I actually physically read. And my favourite book for the month of October, I thought I had the physical copy here behind me, but it is Underneath the Christmas Tree by Heidi Swain. I'll show you. I got sent an Underneath the Christmas Tree themed Christmas card from Simon & Schuster. And so the cover basically looks like this. And this is adult rom-com, Christmas, festive, winter's Christmas trees. We're in the seaside town of Wynmouth, and it was just fantastic. And I really enjoyed it. I did a lot of book versus movie videos in the month of October as well as I did in the month of December. So that was interesting. And then again, we can see the fact that I'm getting like back into my groove when it comes to reading, especially now I've realised the potential of, you know, audiobooks on the commute. And I was up and down to where Ollie lives a couple of times, and that's, you know, a 3 to 4 hour journey, and so that's a lot of audiobook listening time as well. So I read 14 books in the month of November. I credit this to the fact that my TBR was really focused. So I was doing NetGalley November and I was also doing non-fiction November, and I love non-fiction audiobooks, and obviously NetGalley books are generally ebooks, so I was able to make a real sort of, I just was able to get a grip on my reading, and I really like the fact that I was able to have such control over my reading in that way. And I think it sort of has helped me structure my next couple of TBRs, so my December TBR and my January TBR, if you haven't seen those, because November was so structured. So I read 8 non-fiction books and 4 books for review. So they weren't necessarily, I had a couple that were NetGalley books for review and a couple that were books that had been sent to me for review, which was just great. And I stuck really well. And looking back on last year's review, I put that I stuck to my TBR last year as well. And I'm wondering if it's because I sort of from September, October onwards, I kind of save my non-fiction reads for November. And so when I get to November, I get really excited about reading them. But one of my non-fiction reads was a review copy as well. So it crossed, you know, my little Venn diagram. It was the one in the middle. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. And I will be trying to make more structured TBRs. I think my top 22 books of 2022 that I want to read will help make my 2022 books TBRs even more structured. Obviously, this was my favourite read of November, and I have a whole standalone review of this one, including some footage of an in-person signing event that I went to, because I went back to in-person book events in November. That was so exciting. Another big highlight of November. But yeah, I will leave this video, if you haven't already seen it, linked down below, up above, in the end screen, wherever I've got room to leave it linked. On a night like this, a loose Cinderella retelling. I've read a couple of retellings this year, which is exciting. And it's just hilarious and just fabulous. And the fact that the cover is blurred by Marion Keyes, it's all you need to know. So if you haven't already picked this one up, go and get it, because it's fantastic. And the audiobook is read by Carrie Hope Fletcher, and so it is a reread that I would like to do in 2022 because it's on Scribd and I'm very excited. I have a link for Scribd in the description box below where you can get a free month. I think it's a free month. But yeah, I just restarted it. I stopped it when I moved here for a little bit because I wasn't reading as much, as you know, and I just restarted that. So maybe that's a highlight of November, December for me. And finally, we have the month of December. I only read 5 books in December, but that's okay because the last week of term for me was just crazy. I did Vlogmas in the form of 4 weekly vlogs this year. And so if you want to see how crazy December was for me, you can go away and watch those weekly vlogs if you haven't already, because that's why I only read 5 books in the month of December. And as soon as the school holidays hit, I basically didn't read anymore. I did a couple of book versus movies this month. I watched some of my favourite films in the cinemas this month as well. And so it was December. It's busy. We know December is busy. But I made the small TBR with, what did I have on it, 4 or 5 books on there, and I stuck to it and I read 5 books, and my favourite book was A Boy Called Christmas, which is Matt Haig's middle grade fiction book that got made into a Sky original movie that is on Netflix in the US. Thank you very much, Mary, for informing me of that. And I really enjoyed it. It's narrated by Stephen Fry, and then I'm currently in the middle of, so it didn't get finished in December, but I started it in December, the follow-up, which is The Girl Who Saved Christmas, and features some of the same characters, so I need to go back and finish that. It's not officially on the January TBR, but it's one of those that I would like to get to if I could, but we shall see. So all in all, I read 157 books this year, which is about half of what I read last year, because I was just shy of 300 books last year. But yeah, I moved continents during the pandemic. I went back to working full time again for the first time in more than 5 years. And I've reconnected with lots of family and friends that I haven't seen in more than 2 years. I've moved. I moved again. I started another new job. So it's just, life happens, and making this reflection has been really useful for going, yeah, I achieved this. And reading 157 books is definitely more than an average person reads in a year. I do need to get better in 2022 about reviewing all of the books that I read. If it's a NetGalley book or it's been sent to me for review, I will review it. If not, I've kind of stopped writing full reviews. But yeah, check out my Goodreads, because I always give a few thoughts on my books there. And if I do end up writing a full review, it's always on Goodreads as well as on my blog. So yeah, let me know. Was there a highlight of 2021 for you? How did your reading compare to the previous year? Do you make these reflective posts and videos like I do? Do let me know in comments what you think of this kind of video. And also, I would love to know what your reading goals for 2022 are, whether there's specific books you want to get to, specific things you want to read, or specific habits you want to get back into, because that's one for me. Do let me know in the comments. I will be back with another video for you very soon, so make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and yeah, I will see you with my next video. Thanks for watching.